Hello, I am Alejandro and I'm going to present the work under the title Tourism as a Tool for Economic Development, Identification of Determining Factors, carried out with my partners Pablo Juan Cardenas-García and Jose Carlos Collado González from the University of Jaen. First of all, we need to introduce the importance of the tourism as instrument or tool of economic growth. We need to refer to the year 2002 with a preliminary work about the nexus tourism and economic growth by Balaver and Cantaveda-Jordá, where TLGH hypothesis was born. Tourism can also be characterized as a tool that acts as a development of the quality of life and well-being of the populations. In summary, tourism is a tool again for the economic and human development. Due to this, international organizations defend the idea that tourism is an element for other dimensions related with economic development, such as poverty or income inequalities in developing countries. Nowadays, has been generated, the presence entry has been generated that different questions that consider that the usefulness of tourism as a tool for this development, right? It's relevant to highlight the importance of taking on the characteristics and factors identified in the different territories of destination, which make possible the positive relationship between the variables analyzed. In this case, the positive relationship between tourism and economic development. Opposite to economic growth, the current literature lacks an appreciable number of empirical articles that analyze the relationship between tourism and economic development. With the nexus economic growth tourism, we can identify a lot of empirical works that analyze the empirical relationship from the point of view of the causality. As I said before, the opposite occurred with the nexus tourism and economic development, where we can find a lot of work, but most of them are theoretical. So the objective of this work is to carry out a review of those empirical works and the results regarding the relationship between tourism and economic development in order to define the factors or characteristics which condition the relationship between tourism and economic development. Thanks to this identification, we can avoid the different keys for countries to be able to formulate social and economic policies focused on tourism in order to be more attractive for the visitors. In the literature, we can find two different blocks. On the one hand, we can find authors agree with the idea that economic development is promoted by tourism. But this is capable of contributing to something more general than economic growth, at least. In this case, economic development, as I said. But on the other hand, other authors present different limitations or different conditions to this affirmation, for example. Thus limiting the ability to attract to the detriment of other sectors, difficulty in controlling local resources and the impact on the natural environment, which is one of the most negative impact produced by tourism. In summary, tourism has positive and negative impacts, and governments need to reduce the negative impacts and take advantage of positive. Negative impacts, such as related with the environment, the overcrowding of cities, and taking advantage of positive, such as the positive or good consequences for the economy in general, of the well-being population, or the quality of life, or reducing the poverty, for example. Despite the existence of these opposing positions, it should be noted that most of these studies lack empirical methodology, as I said in the last slide. Most of them contribute from the point of view of the theoretical contents. Everything seems to indicate that the characteristics of each country significantly influence the capacity of tourism to generate economic development. For example, when we analyze the countries as like Ecuador, where with bigger budget destined to educations, produce a good relationship between tourism and economic development. So, to clarify the idea of this work, the main purpose, as I said, is to analyze the relationship between tourism and economic development, as well as to identify the determinant factors that make possible the positive relationship between these variables. Uh, to reach this, we did a search and the data collection across the databases corpus, because this database is one of the most important, with more prestigious in the world. We only exclude the articles from the point of view of theoretical content, and we validate 7 articles, 7 empirical articles. In this slide, we can check a table to collect the different destinations, analyze and determinant factors. For example, in the column to the right, we can see the level of development, education, and health as a component of Human Development Index, the insularity, which is a very important characteristic of some countries, because produced or better says, the insularity promotes the attractive of the destination. Territorial locations or infrastructure and transport or other sectors are other determinants of the positive relationship. Also, different events, as we will see in the next slide, or conversion of the national economy plays an essential role in the relationship between the variables analyzed. In this slide, we can see the different results obtained after the analysis of the different papers collected from Scopus. First of all, the Ball Triangle considered that a good territorial locations along the Val River produced the best scenario to the positive relationship between the variables. Another example is the Football World Cup in 2010. We remember in South Africa, thanks to the celebration of an international event, such important like a Football World Cup, is very important to the country, because increases the number of visitors and promotes, for example, the creation of new jobs, or definitely increase the quality of life of the residents thanks to the income. Another example of the different determinants or factors is when we analyze 144 countries where, for example, quality of infrastructure, trade in goods and service, age of the populations, electricity, production from oil, gas, and coal, different characteristics of the populations and geographic locations are collected in these papers as a determinant factors to the positive relationship between tourism and economic development. Also, in the island of Aruba, the conversion of the national economy into an oil industry with a tourist-oriented nucleus having the highest standard of living. Another example we can see in Nicaragua, South American countries, due to the insularity or, for example, the level of educations. And lastly, the case of Pedrana, where the destination area must have easy access. So infrastructure and transportation is essential to produce an attractive scenario for the tourists. To close the presentations, we resumed with the conclusions um, obtained after the analysis the different papers about the relationship between tourism and economic development in order to identify the different factors or determinants uh, that plays an essential role in the analysis in the relationship. Sorry. Uh, in the existing literature on tourism has focused mainly on studying its relationship with economic growth. So the study of economic development and tourism and including the factors is not very standard. And on the other hand, and with regard to the economic development, the volume of work is much smaller, with more theoretical research predominating. There's not a common result. However, this work has carried out a review of different articles identifying the different conditions and circumstances that occur in the territories to obtain a positive relationship between economic development and tourism. Following this line, the geographical location, the policies to support tourism and economic activity, or the position of coastal area, the high standard of living of the populations, to be qualities that benefit countries in order to increase socio-economic development. Finally, a general conclusion can be drawn regarding economic development. Tourism is not a tool that has an immediate effect. It's not a magic tool for the economy in general for the countries, but in certain places it can have a great impact depending on the characteristic of the destination's territory. Thank you very much for your attention.